My name is Amy Butler. I'm the interim senior minister here at National City Christian Church, this beautiful and sacred place where Chrys found a home for so many years, and so very many people loved him. And I know you are gathered here today because you love Chrys and you love his family, and so we're here today to celebrate what a precious and beautiful life, to give thanks to God, and to ask for hope and courage as we make our ways into the days ahead. You'll hear some beautiful music today. You'll hear some beautiful words of remembrance. We begin today with some words that are very traditional. Almighty God has sent us to declare the good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, to release the prisoners, to proclaim the day of the Lord's favor. In that day, the Lord God will wipe away the tears from every eye. The Lord has spoken. This is the Lord for whom we waited. Let us be glad and rejoice in his salvation. Friends, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. It never ceases. As you gather today to remember Chrys and celebrate his life, would you recall that the presence of God is here with us all? Welcome, welcome today.
name is Myrna Jones, and I am, as Chrys would say, a lemon wannabe, or an honorary lemon in the Lemon family. I've been a friend of Robin and Chrys's for over 30 years. I've also had the honor of serving on the Phillips Theological Seminary board with him, where he brought all those gifts that you can imagine and a whole lot more. Each December, Chrys created a special evening, a musicale in memory of his mother, Mary Lou, who died in 2002. He chose words, music, and experiences to share with his family and significant others as they gathered to remember the past, celebrate the present, and lean into the future with hope. For the December 2007 musicale, which Chrys titled Holiday Lemon Meringue, Chrys read this poem from Walt Whitman. This is what you shall do. Love the earth and the sun and the animals. Despise riches. Give alms to everyone that asks. Stand up for the stupid and crazy. Devote your income and labor to others. Hate tyrants. Argue not concerning God. Have patience and indulgence toward the people. Take off your hat to nothing known or unknown, or to any man or number of men. Go freely with powerful, uneducated persons, and with the young and with the mothers of families. Read these leaves in the open air every season of every year of your life. Re-examine all that you have been told at school or church or in any book. Dismiss whatever insults your own soul, and your very flesh will be a great poem. We give thanks to Walt Whitman for this, and we give thanks to Chrys Lemon for remembering this poem in his very life.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Lemon, one of Chris's two older brothers. And our family would like to thank everybody for being here with us today, whether you're in the sanctuary or watching from the live stream. We'd first of all like to thank all of Chris's friends and acquaintances from the D.C. area who are with us. Thank you all for being here. We'd like also to thank all of the people who attended the U.S. Air Force Academy with Chrys or served with him in the United States Air Force. He was so proud of being a graduate of the Academy and a pilot in the Air Force. So thank you all for being with us today. We would also like to thank all of the members of the Congressional Chorus who are here today and participating in this event. Thank you for the lovely music. The chorus was such a big, thrillingly happy part of Chris's life for many years. Even though we did notice he was never given or never allowed to sing a solo. We'd like to also give a special thanks to Chris's long-term law partner, Jim McIntyre, and his wife, Maureen, and the entire McIntyre Lemon law firm for making the effort to be here today. We really appreciate it. I'm looking out here trying to see where they are, but there they are. Okay. Thank you, Jim. We'd also like to give a shout out to anybody in the Perryton and Booker, Texas area who may be watching via live stream. People in those two communities had a profoundly positive impact on Chrys and our entire family. We'd also like to acknowledge several of our family members who could not be here today in Washington today. Our older brother, Dale Lemon, in Austin, Texas, who wrote Chris's beautiful obituary, and with his wife, Leslie, who helped make sure that Dell didn't overly embellish the obituary. Our cousin Marcus Lemon and his wife Susan, who have been taking care of our beloved Aunt Llewellyn in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And our cousin Richard Smith in Petaluma, California, who helped teach us when his own brother died how to endure and accept the tragic death of a younger brother. Finally, we just want to say thank you to National City Christian Church for hosting this event for Chrys today. Just shy of 40 years ago, my wife Anna and I were married at this church in this sanctuary. So we want to say thank you to the church for being here for us in times of joy and sadness. And now a few words about Chrys. Chrys was the best brother anybody could ever ask for. In a tribute to Chrys, one of our cousins wrote that he was loving, generous, smart, social, authentic, musical, articulate, informed, and opinionated. A close friend wrote that he was bright, talented, insightful, and hilariously funny. Another close family friend wrote that he was kind and compassionate, a man among men, and a caregiver and an achiever in every regard. Now, that is all true, and I couldn't have said it better than that. It seems Chrys was almost perfect. You could always count on him, and he was as reliable as the day is long. That is, unless it happened to be a long summer day of farm work. When it came to doing farm work, well, I won't beat around the bush. As our cousin Martin, who's with us here today, wrote in his tribute, Chrys hated farm work. And in hindsight, Dale, my older brother, and I, and our cousins Marcus and Martin, we now realize that back in the day, Chrys was purposefully scheduling his Boy Scout merit badge summer activities so that they would conflict with the summer farm work that he was supposed to be helping us do. And so we just wanted to take this opportunity to set the record straight about that. But there's no doubt Chrys always strived to be a giver and not a taker. That was true personally, professionally, and socially. He just really liked to share his talent, time, and resources. Now, one last thing. Chrys was a religious person, and throughout his adult life, he would use religious phrases to help roll with life's punches and rejoice in its winds. For example, when we asked him why he never got to sing a solo in a chorus, and I can just hear him saying this right now, he would say, God's will. It's God's will. And it was the same thing with the car he was driving when he first arrived in Washington, D.C. It was a bona fide lemon. And if it wouldn't start, or when we felt the headliner sagging down on our heads as we were driving along in the car, I would just be furious about it. But again, he would say, God's will. It's God's will. But if he saw a headline in the paper that he really liked, like the one that said, State of Virginia gives lemon law more bite, he would shout, Praise Jesus. Thank you all for being here with us today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Lemon. I'm Chrys's nephew. And thank you all so much for coming. I can't tell you how much it warms our heart to have such a showing of the different chapters in Chrys's life and the many lives he touched while he was with us. Good morning, blossoms. That's what Chrys would say, greeting us at a family reunion, or any time I'd have a chance to meet up with him for brunch before noon, just up the street from here. Chrys reminded everyone that was lucky enough to touch his light that every day was a chance anew, a growing sunlight in which to blossom, a chance to seize the moment, and another step forward in this journey called life. As young kids growing up, my sister Jacqueline and I, Chrys wasn't the uncle that brought us toys or games, though one Christmas he did bring us a TV. But he was the uncle that brought us books and Christmas gifts of an educational persuasion, always reminding us that he didn't buy them for his health, but because they reminded him of us, our passions, and to stoke our thirst for knowledge and learning. Chrys pushed us to strive and grow into our own as any Eagle Scout or class president would. Throughout high school and college, he reminded both Jacqueline and I to never be afraid to explore and learn new things. Chrys opened our eyes with his love of musicals and Broadway glitz. He taught us how singing and story could soothe our pain or embolden our courage. He shared the things that brought him joy in this world around us and encouraged us to never be afraid and to always go where our interests led us. He reminded our family, Jackie and I, how fortunate we were to have a family that loved and cared for us and that were in our lives. Chrys was the beating heart of our family in many ways, organizing the annual musicale in honor of my grandmother, where we got to sing along with the sound of music, as Myrna mentioned earlier. And many, many of our family reunions are all because of Chrys and his tenacity to bring our family together. Chrys made sure that we got together as a family. After college, Chrys pushed me spending many hours and weekends working together. And as a result, my dad and I and Chrys were able to found a company called Bridge to Renewables, because Chrys and my dad believed that joining the fight against climate change was just the right thing to do. Excuse me. Service to nobler causes greater than ourselves was core to who he was as a person. It's what drove him to do more, especially in service of those less fortunate. I was always astonished at the breadth of Chrys's interests and the conviction in which he pursued them. The generosity of his time and talent that he made available to those that were lucky enough to brush shoulders with him was always something that Jacqueline, myself, and I aspired to do because of Chrys. I could have never asked for a better person, friend, role model, or uncle to have shared my life with. And I know, looking out at the people in this room, that all of us feel the same way. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Eli Grayson. I'm the adopted brother of Chrys Lemon. I wrote a speech about 50 times, and I threw it away because I couldn't make it through every one I wrote. Chrys, I miss your morning text saying, Moki, read this in the New York Times. I miss him calling and saying, Blossoms, what are you doing today? I thought about when I was sick with bone marrow cancer back in 2013. And he would message me and call me on sometimes my sickest days after chemo. And he would say, Blossoms. And I think about the word blossoms, which means life, which means seed, which means new birth. All those things means blossoms, flowers, joy. The opposite of blossom is waning, wilting, dying. And there were days when I thought I was there. And my brother would say blossoms to wake me up. So it wasn't just a greeting, it was a calling. And I miss him. I miss him a lot. I'm a Muskogee Creek Indian from Oklahoma. And we have in our tribe a tradition of I'll see you again later. We don't say goodbye. And I've had a hard time saying it. It's Hamdang Chihi Jagadis in my language. We say that when someone passes on. And it's been very difficult this month because it's how do I see this world without the view of Chrys Lemon? And this is what reflections are about. You know, we reflect on the good times often and some of the bad times. I want to reflect on how Chrys may have thought of me, how he felt about me, and try to live up to those things. And Chrys, for a long time, particularly after Bob died, had become a conscience on my shoulder of the good guy. We all have that good guy. And sometimes I would think, oh, what would Chrys think about this? What would he do about this? And particularly legal situations, family situations, whatever. What would Chrys say? What would Chrys do? You know, and I think we all counted on him like that. And he's not here anymore, you know, but he's here. He's here. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Robin, my sister, I love you so much. I'm not the cat that says that a lot. I'm not the emotional person to, wear that on my sleeve at all. I'm good at kind of putting that in the back. But this summer actually, it's been one of those times where, Jim, I love you. Mike, I love you. Jackie, I love you. Anna, I love you. Martin, I love you. I love you, all you guys. I'm the adopted one, the odd Indian one. And, the universe does things. In my tribal religion, the word universe, the word creator is Ofunga. And the Creator, some kind of way, brought me in the path of Bob and Mary Lou, and we've been family ever since, So thank you guys for coming out. I didn't mean for this to go sad, because there's so much of Chrys that's fun, including if you ever go to his apartment and see all the colors of the rainbow that hits you in your face when you walk through the door. Those are the essence of Chrys. And forever, as long as I breathe, Chrys would be the essence of the rainbow. Not just the gay rainbow, but Chrys's rainbow. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Jorge Do Cabo. I'm Chrys's best friend and kind, generous, altruistic, warm, loyal, fun and funny, bright. These are just a few of the attributes that come to my mind when I think of Chrys Lemon. Those of us that have been touched by his friendship and love know how extraordinary person he was. I'm blessed, having had the chance to spend the best 14 years of my life with one of the most amazing souls I have ever met. His presence was never unnoticed. He was not a very tall guy, but he was really the person in the room. His arrival, he would fill the room with his gorgeous, kind blue eyes and his generous, beautiful smile, always available to help us in any capacity he could be of service to us. They say that grief is the price to pay for love. Well, when I think of Chrys, I got one step further. The grief I have been experiencing for the last couple of months is the gift of his love, proportional to the size of his heart. I'm the lucky one. Chrys will always remain in the center of my heart for the rest of my life. When I think of him, whether walking on the street, watching our favorite movies, or listening to a piece of music, I will be searching for his eyes in the sky. And I know he will be there somewhere, in some form, to comfort us and influence our world to make it better, warmer, kinder, juster. A better place for all of us to share in peace and harmony. Chrys was, is, and will always be in us forever and ever. Chrys, I hope you found the glory that you so much deserve. I know you have. You're not alone, ever. I'm here for you, anytime, forever. This offer never expires. We love you and miss you so much. Love from all to all. Thank you.
Because my remarks will include reflections and include eulogy, my remarks will be a little bit longer, so consider this a seventh inning stretch. If you need to shift a little bit or stand up and stretch your legs or breathe deeply, which I need to do, please take a minute and do that. And Jim, Moki, Amy, Myrna, anything I can do to make it so that everyone can hear me better. Sometimes my voice is higher. So, can you hear me now? Now, is that better? Hello. I am Robin Lemon Sellers, twin sister of Chrys Lemon. I have been with Chrys Lemon for a very, very, very long time. We would have celebrated our 65th birthdays this December 13th. Again, thank you for being here. Do you know, since Chris's death, a tsunami has occurred? Your thoughts, cards, messages, flowers, voicemails, posts, tributes, more thoughts, cards, messages, flowers, voicemails kept coming and coming, more incoming. And we needed a tsunami. Thank you. I want first to share with you two stories Chrys and I would share with each other about our early days, because each says a lot about him and who he grew up to be. I learned two things early about my twin brother. He would be a lifelong deliberator. He would deliberate about everything. You know, consider things, weigh options, be thoughtful. And secondly, he had the perfect last name. He loved to bring extra zest to things he was involved in, extra color, energy, pizzazz, flavor, always a little extra added, whether it was needed or not. He had fun with his last name, and he was a sweet lemon. I just can't help but add that I have 3 more brothers, just as exceptional and sweet as Chrys. Moki, Dell, Jim, how fortunate am I? Chrys and I first met, when we first met each other, we were quite young. We had been in our mother's womb, that's womb, not room, for what seemed like an eternity, over 9 months. Chrys, all of a sudden, noticed he was alone, all alone. Where'd she go? He wondered. Where is my sister? She's been right beside me all these months, and now She's just gone. Chrys waited a couple minutes, deliberating, a little worried. Was she okay? So unlike her. Should he try to find her? That seemed scary. Leaving this warm, dark, comfortable, cozy place they had always known, for what? But what if she was in trouble? What if she needed him? On the other hand, he deliberated some more. What if he was missing out? What if she was doing something fun and he was getting left behind? It had been nearly 5 minutes. He had to go check on his sister. She might need him. He did. And he continued to do that for the rest of his life. For the rest of our lives, he deliberated about almost everything, carefully. Sometimes you couldn't tell this. He was almost deceptive. But he did like to consider, to plan, to discuss, and sometimes for a long time. Chrys did have the perfect last name. He brought that lemon zest to almost everything. Extra decor, excitement, joy, a little balloon here, too many sometimes there, a cookie, some flowers, some earplugs. Extra. Chrys always seemed to add a little extra. He really liked doing that. He really liked living up to his last name. Even when we were 6 years old, I discovered this in a most important way for me personally. In my little 6-year-old world, I was in a crisis. I was in a tiz, beside myself. My kittens, what was going to happen to my tiny little black bundles of fur, my charges that I had been a substitute mother for a whole week. But now I had been told by my mother that she and I had to leave for 3 days to go see my grandparents. What would happen to my kittens? What was I going to do? Chrys volunteered. He volunteered to take care of my kittens while I was gone. Now, I remember at the time knowing in the back of my mind there was potential for hazard here. This kitten-raising venture didn't always go well with those fragile, tiny creatures. And Chrys, this was not his department. He had little, if any, experience, but certainly no on-the-job training. But I was relieved and grateful. When I returned from my grandparents, Chrys informed me every one of those kittens had died. As horrible as that news was, I had to ask him the question that had then come foremost to my mind. I don't even know why I asked him this, because I already knew the answer, and it was awful. Every dead cat or kitten I had ever seen up until then, usually found out in the street, hit by a car, ended up in the trash barrels out back in the alley. But ask I did, thinking about those beautiful little black furry balls with their sweet, beady, bluish black eyes. Chrys, what did you do with them? He told me he had put their bodies all close to each other in the middle of their box and wrapped their blanket around them, closed the flaps for a lid, and then he said, "I buried them for you." Extra. Later, as we became adults, he would check on my health. Just recently with the pandemic, Robin, have you gotten your COVID vaccine? Well, no. A few weeks later, Robin, have you gotten your COVID vaccine? Well, not yet. A few weeks later, Robin, you still haven't gotten your COVID vaccine, have you? Well, no, but I'm going to. Okay, Robin, let me help you. I can go online and make you a reservation. It will be so easy for you. He did, and I did. He was deliberative, and he did extra. He would buy quantities of good quality masks and distribute them. Same with home test kits for COVID. And Chrys was forever handing out those multicolored earplugs like they were candy or mints. Do you have your earplugs? He would say, palm open with numerous bright, pretty earplugs. You could mix and match them with your outfit. For years, I have found these things everywhere. One turned up in the produce bin of my refrigerator. I wondered who was the original owner of that one. I just found an escapee the other day, a constant reminder of one who cared, not only about his own health, hearing and such, but about yours and mine. Oh, he had his failings. I would needle him about his own health. Yogurt. Chrys, where is your yogurt? I'm not finding any yogurt in here. Beer. Chrys, why not just one beer instead of 2 or 3? Or, after all, you only get one liver. If you live to be 100, wouldn't you like to do so with an intact liver? Chrysanthemum was a funny, gay guy. He was also serious. Chrys was an early supporter of and proponent for women. He and our family and Myrna spent the day in the huge Women's March, January 21st, 2017, and Chrys had a field day, attired in his pink knitted cap. He looked so funny. He never took it off. Those caps were hot items that day, and very few men wore them, but Chrys Lemon did, a true hero in the eyes of many a female. Extra. Chrys supported the LGBTQ movement wholeheartedly with his time and energy. He knew I had a transgender grandson, and he knew many of his friends had not had it as easy as he had when he came out as a young gay man. Their families were not supportive. Their parents were not supportive. The Trevor Project became one of Chrys's targets of his goodwill just recently. Just this past year, before he died, he worked to turn around a cascade of suicidal youth feeling abandoned, lost, and confused. Chrys gave them his focus, as he did other organizations working to reverse bias, inequality, ignorance, misinformation, disinformation. He would bring his trademark zest, fun, and humor to these efforts. Does anyone here remember his many obnoxious, though beautiful, bright yellow balloons at the Victory Fund Gala? Thank goodness he was the only one that did that. They worked. You could certainly find Chrys and his tables in that room of hundreds, but you certainly couldn't find or see the stage very well if you were behind those balloons. And more than a few negative comments found us. A little too much extra that time. Similarly, Chrys brought extra to a church that gives extra. It is why we are here today in this sanctuary, in this building, to be inclusive, all-embracing, no restrictions, no requirements, certainly no walls or barriers. If anything, his vision, this church had to always be embracing others, building that longer table, that table of communion, and your and my and Chris's tables in our homes. He was here for years on Sunday mornings with Lon, Schreiber, and Kevin singing, worshiping. He was here during the week, serving on boards, attending meetings, working with others, collaborating, planning, cleaning. I don't think he did much cleaning. This was his family, and it was a perfect vision. Everyone all in. Chrys had other families where he lived at the Belvedere, his military family, his family at JR's. His legal work brought family to him. They were family. So many people who cared about him, and he cared about them. My words today are to be part eulogy, which are words of praise, but also words of comfort. Some irony here. I am to deliver words of comfort to you after being such a recipient of a massive amount of comfort. But this was my choice. Perhaps some thoughts that I and my brothers and my sisters-in-law have accrued can help to deliver to all some comfort. All who have felt this extreme loss, who have experienced the misery, grief, shock, surprise that Chrys suddenly and inexplicably has left us with. You might say, this family, all of you and all of us today, have been a scene of wreckage. What happened with Chrys is the question that seems to be in the air. Over the summer, and really beginning months before, our Chrys became a different Chrys. Slowly, confusion, impaired judgment, cognitive impairment, memory problems, and other negative influences impacted both his personality and his ability to think logically, rationally about problems, about solutions. He literally lost the ability to deliberate. What caused this? Now, before we go on any further, I want to share a couple of lines from Les Miserables that illustrates how difficult it is to try to understand the mind of another, which we have been trying to do. But there is a caution, and that is, it's very difficult to do that. Victor Hugo writes about Cosette, who was a ragged little slave in a French inn who has never had a real doll, and she is given the most beautiful of dolls and time to play with it. She takes the gift and places it carefully in a chair and sits down before it in wonder. "Aren't you going to play with it?" asks the one who had given it to her. "Play, child," thunders her mistress. Cosette, with her eyes still fixed on the doll, whispers, "Oh, I am playing." A reminder that it is sometimes very difficult to know what is going on in the mind of another. For more than 2 decades, Chrys took a regular small dose of an antidepressant. From what we know, at some point, this may have been increased, but the point here is that it is now known staying on such a prescription drug for years can be quite hazardous to one's health. Additionally, like all of us, Chrys was aging. Most of the time, that means less of a drug is needed, certainly not an increase in most cases. The upshot of what we believe took over Chrys's life is the long-term effects of this and the mind-changing elements of this mood-altering drug, which made him unable to function. We now know several major decisions on his part impacting his finances, his work, and his relationships were determined not by his usual thoughtful, deliberative, well-thought-out considerations, but instead were determined by overly emotional, impulsive, knee-jerk reactions. The problem with the very last decision he made in his life was that, unlike these previous impulsive decisions that affected money or plans or friendships, where he could later, after recognizing what he had done, which he would be able to eventually do, he could make amends or issue apologies, right his ship in some way. The last decision didn't allow for anything to follow afterwards. No regret or remorse or recourse or explaining, because when you decide to jump from a high elevation, not able to deliberate or think about other options or consider consequences, what the aftermath might be, when you do that, gravity takes over and completes the job, and there are no do-overs. Fatality is certain. You do not get the chance to say, "Boy, did I screw up on that decision." No chance to explain to others that you never intended or planned for the consequences. And you have caused a lot of heartbreak, people left sick with grief that you yourself would be horrified to know about. Mania can be caused by certain medications. Mania brings with it euphoria, where any idea is often a good idea. It can devastate one's finances, work relationships, personal relationships, one's life. And we feel it did in Chrys Lemon's case. But do recall the story of Cosette, the difficulty in knowing what is going on in one's mind. So here we are. What would Chrys Lemon say to us today? Chrys, we need you to do some extra here. Well, let me take a stab at it because I knew him really, really well. First of all, he would say, Robin, get some color, girl. To celebrate my entire life with so many friends, you're in beige? He would give me a C-. He would say, I've seen Teresa Beaton and what she does for a party after these services at our church. Get some color, Robin. And then he would say, that Chrys Lemon wasn't me. That was a shell of me. So you, all of you, you're going to have to take over to fill my shoes. I'm not going to be there. You are going to have to do extra. Live better. Starting today, after this service, my friend Teresa has some victuals lined up that her talent and expertise will bring a flourish to. Beautiful, nutritious food. Take care of your bodies. There will be pictures of me at this get-together in the community room. There's not a finer show in town today. Free, too. Live better. Extra. Make that table longer. Bring in those that might not have a table. Smash a few of the walls. He would modify walls while you're at it. And lastly, you will have to purchase your own earplugs from now on and buy enough for others. Get the mix and match, preferably rainbow colors. It's cheaper. Finally, and everyone needs to know this, I never intended for this, dear friends and my family. This was not a planned, well thought out action. Knee-jerk, yes. Impulsive, definitely. Overly emotional, I'll say. But I had 65 wonderful years because of all of you. Carry on and do a little extra. Have fun and do as our dad would always say, try to be nice. Just try to be nice. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I am Jacqueline, Chris's niece, and I know Chrys isn't physically here, but I see him all around me and all of you, so thank you. If you would all bow your heads, and I will read a prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is discord, union. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is joy, sadness, joy. Grant that we may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in the giving that we receive, and in the pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Friends, if you would remain standing for a few moments to receive a blessing, I want to repeat Robin's invitation. If you would join us just through these doors to your right, downstairs in the community room, there will be some amazing food, wonderful pictures, and we'd love to have some time of sharing remembrances of Chrys. For those of you who loved and knew Chrys the longest and the closest, Chrys's family. Every time Chrys and I had coffee, he talked to me about all of you, especially you, Robin. He said, I think you and Robin would really like each other. He told you the same thing. And I want to thank you because it takes a lot of courage to talk about something that is very, very difficult. And I want to say to all of you, if you are at a place in your life where you're dealing with deep sadness and you don't see a future, there is hope and there is help. Please reach out. I'm available. I'll be happy to help you. As this time of worship and celebration comes to a close and actually continues downstairs, would you pause for a moment and receive this blessing? There is nothing in all the world that can separate us from the love of God. Not one thing. Chrys Lemon is now in peace, and he would want you to go into this world, to add some brightness to the world around you, to heal it as best you can, and to live with all the peace you can muster. Amen.